And we are back. It's another great episode of Liam Picks Fights, brought to you by Prize Picks, the simplest game in DFS. You don't have to play against a million other people in the field. There's not mass multi-entries and all this complicated jargon. It's very simple. They put out a list of projections across all different sports. You can pair them together. You can use, a bunch of MMA props if that's your scene. If you like to combine across different sports, you can do that too. But go ahead. If you get signed up, go to prizepicks.com. Use my promo code Liam. They're going to deposit match you 100% up to $100. The information you need is in the description box below. I hope you'll check it out. That being said, guys, we're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 49 today on the show, and I'm very excited to be bringing on two very special guests, two new friends of the show, guys that we have not had on before, and I think that they offer a lot in terms of their potential on the show, and my man Lucky Locks has been killing the game on the regional scene. The LFA breakdowns have been on the money, and I've really been enjoying them as well from a content perspective. So everybody, make sure you go subscribe to my man's stuff. It's in the information description below. But Lucky, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm a fan of the show, so I'm happy to be on today, talking to you, talking to some new people. Excited to break down this card. I think there's a couple sleeper fights on here, and I think this card's going to deliver entertainment-wise for sure.
Absolutely, my man. I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm expecting, fireworks here. A lot of times the lower level cards actually provide more opportunities for finishes because people are a little less talented, a little less defensively sound, a little less proficient on both sides. So it leaves a little bit more room for variance, a little bit more room for violence, as we like to say. But I also got my man Julian coming on, and he's a little bit newer to this MMA betting community, but the guy has absolutely been crushing it. As a professional tipster in the football, the soccer community, if you will. So very excited to have you on the show to introduce you to more MMA fans. And I think you got a sharp mind for the sport, but I know you have a sharp mind for gambling. And it's a real pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. How you doing?
Appreciate it, man. Just one thing right away. Yeah, you can't say soccer. It's football. Yeah, that's a bit disrespectful. Yeah, but no, I appreciate you having me. I think this card betting wise is very, very solid. I thought the same last card, but ended -4 units, I believe. But I think this card is very good betting wise, and yeah, I think there's a couple of sneaky spots that we can hit. And yeah, man, appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, man. And to be honest, folks, I gave out so many good bets, so many good plays on the show last week, and still lost my ass. Overexposed on the Parker Porter fight. So relying on low-level heavyweights is something you should never do. And I paid for it dearly there. So lessons learned. But again, we went 10-2 on picks on the show. So very excited to be back, hitting over 70% so far this year on the UFC. So we're going to knock on wood, and we're going to hope to keep it rolling at UFC Vegas 49. And the headliner is obviously very solid. We got Bobby Green taking on Islam Makhachev. But there's some fights from top to bottom, I think, that have substance. So we're going to start at the bottom here in the 125-pound division. We've got a men's fight between Victor Altamirano and Carlos Hernandez. And these are two Contender Series fighters. I believe I cashed on both these guys when they were on the Contender Series. I haven't gone back to revisit the tape. It's the earliest fight on the card. It's the one that I've spent the least amount of time researching. It's closely lined. That's probably appropriate. There's not a lot of data on both of these guys. So I'm probably going to use this fight to gather some information and bet on these guys moving forward. Locke, do you have a better view on this fight? Do you see this clearly, or how are you viewing this matchup?
I mean, it's lined closely for a reason. It's definitely a close fight. Both guys had really close fights on Contender Series. Altamirano's a guy that was flyweight champ in the LFA, fought there for almost his whole career. I mean, even back as an amateur, he was on LFA and Legacy FC fight cards. Hernandez is a guy that came up, the IMAF, the IMMAF scene as an amateur. Had a win as an amateur over the current LFA flyweight champion, Charles Johnson, in St. Louis. Kind of an interesting tidbit there. Overall, as a professional, I believe that Altamirano has had a slightly stronger strength of schedule. The elephant in the room with him is obviously the takedown defense. Everyone's brought it up, and it's mostly true, right? His takedown defense isn't that good, but he is very active off his back with strikes. He has submission attempts. He's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's able to retain his guard pretty well most of the time and has a good get-up game. Hernandez has shown some good wrestling, and I would feel pretty comfortable telling you that he is going to land at least one takedown here. I guess the way I see this one playing out is I think Altamirano is going to be the guy coming forward on the feet. Hernandez has shown he can kind of be corralled to the outside in his fights a little bit. I think the striking exchanges are going to look good for Altamirano. But I also think he probably gets taken down a few times in some sequences that make Hernandez look good. So I like this one to go 3 rounds. I think that the way the second and third round end here are going to be very important to the result of the fight. I just see a back and forth one with 3 really close frames. And in that type of fight, I think I'd probably rather be holding the Altamirano ticket at dog money. But what I like here, I like the overs and I like the fight to go the distance.
I love it. I love it. Do you have a different take here? I think you have a play that lines up pretty similar. Is that right, Julian?
Yeah, I agree with everything Lux has said. I do favor Carlos Hernandez a bit. I don't have any money on the money line. I am looking to hit fight to go to distance at around -140. Yeah, I think it goes all 3 rounds. I do favor Hernandez, as I said. I do think he can get takedowns and a bit of control time, but yeah, that's it. Fight to go to distance and nothing else. I hate betting fight to go to distance, but I think it's a very good sport here. So yeah, that's it.
And this is a division where, typically you want to be betting fight goes the distance when it's that short of a line. The flyweight division doesn't feature quite as many finishes. Obviously, there's some submissions. There's been a slight uptick, I believe, in knockouts in recent years, but still, there's a lot of fights that go the distance at 125 pounds, not as much mass involved on either side to create damage. So I think that's a great factor to consider. And both of these guys are probably a little sloppy, a little green, shouldn't have a huge technical gap in any area. I think that's a great look on the fight goes the distance. So that's something I'm probably going to be tailing myself, ladies and gentlemen. So take that for whatever it's worth. The next fight on the card here, I don't mind starting us off because this is the Just Win Baby and Liam Picks Fights best prop of the card. And it's Ramiz Brahimaj inside the distance here at -150. You could find that in a lot of places on the market. The line's kind of been moving. You could find it -138 some places as well. And I got in on this line a little bit earlier at -125 as the figure. And basically, I see this fight as a very winnable fight for Ramiz Brahimaj. You got Michael Gillmore. He's been finished 7 times between professional, amateur, and exhibition bouts in The Ultimate Fighter. He was finished by Gilbert Urbina. Basically insta-back taked him off a takedown that was just pushing him in the chest. Like there was very little technical wrestling involved. The back take was, fine, but he didn't even get a body triangle or anything like that. He just was working, with 2 hooks in and eventually was able to find the choke. Petrosyan kind of looked like he wanted to, prove he could go a little bit further in the fight, extend the fight, work from his feet a little bit, get some minutes in. That's what it looked like to me on the rewind. He was able to land effective body kicks there. And Gillmore just strikes me as a guy who's a little bit underdeveloped in his game. He's a little bit older, 34 or 35 years old coming into this fight. I think that's going to cap a little bit of the development process. I do think he showed some signs of improvement in the Petrosyan fight, but not in the wrestling defense, just in his ability to, survive and cling to positions and frame a little bit on the ground. But I think ultimately Ramiz, who's a pretty committed jiu-jitsu threat, Petrosyan's a wrestling threat. I think Ramiz is going to try and take his back like Gilbert Urbina did and submit him. I think that's a very live outcome. But I also think that what's to stop him from getting on top of this guy and just smashing him with punches, elbows? And I think that it's already started to take a little bit of action. So I'm going to wait and see what happens with the line. But, I was looking at the Ramiz KO line at +1,000 because there's no reason to play the sub line. When the inside the distance and the sub line are so closely correlated, I don't see the reason to try and opt for the small amount of value there unless you're doing it by round and the price difference is significant. So for me, I like Ramiz to win the fight inside the distance. And I also played the under 2.5 rounds here. Gillmore has a little bit of power. He's never really beat anybody of substance, but he throws some decent strikes and he gets off with some power. I think that's a decent bit of insurance, and it could be stacking winning wagers on top of each other if the fight plays out how I think it does, and Ramiz gets the job done here. So Court McGee, a far cry for Michael Gillmore, who shouldn't be in the UFC. Court McGee is like a long-standing UFC veteran with credible wins up and down his resume. So Lucky, how do you feel about this one, man? I'm pretty convicted.
Yeah, I mean, this is an important fight for both guys, right? I mean, Brahimaj coming in off the court, McGee loss, looking to right the ship, and Gillmore probably doesn't get another call back if he doesn't break into the win column here. And I guess Gillmore is actually a somewhat decent MMA boxer. I mean, he has had some pretty good success against Petrosyan in the second round of their fight. Petrosyan, however, is a guy that I don't really rate that highly. Gillmore also doesn't have a tremendous amount of output all the time. I mean, decent enough power. You touched on that. Back at welterweight now, was at 185 for the Ultimate Fighter in the UFC debut. I'm honestly not sure he's going to look all that much bigger than Ramiz, to be honest. And he kind of tends not to have success against grapplers and or wrestlers. I just don't think it's a good matchup for him in that regard, especially considering he was supposed to be fighting Johnny Parsons here, which would have been a stand-up contest. I'm not really sure how much wrestling or jiu-jitsu he's been drilling in camp. And the guy's been submitted in 3 out of 4 pro losses. Was submitted in round 1 by Gilbert being on the Ultimate Fighter. And like you said, it was like an insta back take, man. That didn't look good. And that's normally the way he loses. And guess how Brahimaj normally wins, right? So I think that Gillmore might be the slightly better striker, maybe if you had to give him something, but I feel like the margin will be very thin. Whereas I feel the skill gap is much, much wider in the grappling in the favor of Ramiz. So yeah, I like him to win. I think he's live to get a sub, but like you mentioned, I don't love the price there. I think the under that you shouted out is not a bad look. And I just don't see this one going 3 rounds, to be honest.
Yeah, and Ramiz has actually been finished in a couple of those losses as well. Court McGee doesn't finish his sandwiches, but Court McGee is kind of the rare exception there in terms of the losses for Ramiz. And I think he lost a wrestling-based decision to Evan Cutts back in the day as well. But, I do think when I look at Ramiz, he's the more physically dynamic guy, and his grappling credentials, they're not stellar, but they do check out on paper. Gillmore trains with a decent enough team. Murcielago's had some recent success, so I want to give them that credit as well. Trains with Chaos Williams, who he beat as an amateur, if you want to boost up Gillmore. But really, he's had a pretty soft run through the pros, and when he's stepped up in competition, he's been finished, like you mentioned. Julian, how do you feel about this one?
I'm on the same side. I've got 6.3 units riding on this fight. I've got 3.3 units on Ramiz inside the distance. I think it's round 1 submission, easy work. I like the KO spot at plus 1,000. Haven't played it yet. I don't know if I will play it, but so yeah, I've got 3.3 units on Ramiz inside the distance. I've also got under 2.5 rounds in a parlay with fight doesn't go to distance in the Petrosyan fight. So yeah,
I love it.
Same, back in the same thing. Round 1 submission. I lost a bit of money on Ramiz against Court McGee because I thought he's just gonna take him down, abuse him, but I lost fair and square. We move.
For sure. I also want to shout out my man Jack Attack in the chat. Very sharp better says primary concern on the Ramiz side is the short notice. Fair play there. Gillmore dropping a weight, but I will say, Jack Attack, Gillmore was at 170 prior to his run on the Ultimate Fighter, and he did get submitted by guys you've never heard of. The Patino fight comes to mind where he's having success. He rocks the guy, then the guy tries to take him down. Then Gillmore insists on trying to take the guy down and gets triangle choked in the first round. So, and triangle choked badly, put to sleep. There's just a couple things that really make me think Gillmore's a little bit suspect there. He's obviously been working those areas of his game, but how much improvement can you make and how much at this age? So I'm going to go ahead and favor Ramiz Brahimaj to get back on track here. I think he's got the brighter future in the UFC. Also, up next, we've got a 145-pound match. This is a really weird one. Alejandro Perez and Jonathan Martinez. I did a bunch of tape for this fight and still came out feeling a little bit uncertain about it. I think that Jonathan Martinez has a lot of obvious advantages on paper. He looks like the much faster guy in terms of hand speed and foot speed. He has a more diverse arsenal of kicks. He can work pretty well from the southpaw stance, offering multiple threats. He'll teep you to the body. He'll kick you in the head. He'll punch you with the hands. His hands need a little bit of work, but I do think they're showing marginal improvements. When he fires, he lands a lot of his punches. He just doesn't throw a lot of punches. He's more committed to his kicking attacks, but he also can kick the calf pretty well and just makes it uncomfortable for guys to fight him. He likes that step-in knee to the body, and he's devastated a few guys with it. I think that could be a real potential game changer here in a fight where he's I believe, going to be a little bit taller, and he can find that knee to the solar plexus, to the liver or to the head. And he's knocked people out with that. Ping-Weon Lee, he knocked out in the UFC with that raised knee in a pretty competitive fight. So, this is the kind of fight where I feel like it could be competitive either way until somebody goes down. But I kind of favor the youth and the exuberance of Martinez in that spot because Perez is a little bit longer in the tooth, got, knocked out badly by Song Yadong, but he's had some success against UFC Southpaws. So I'm not like rushing to the window to bet it. A lot of those guys were wrestlers primarily, but still he's responded to adversity well, except against guys like Song Yadong, who I rate as like, a pretty solid top 15 guy. Martinez is willing to bang with guys, and it's cost him before. Davey Grant, not a lot of people expected him to win that fight, and he's not the most technical fighter in the world, just committed to swinging in the pocket and was able to knock him out. And Perez, there's been times when, whether it's smart or not, he's gotten in the pocket with guys and swung. He doesn't have the worst boxing in the world. I don't think his defensive head movement is very good, though. So I expect that, we're going to see Martinez eventually find the chin and knock him out. But I think that this is kind of a greasy fight on the money line. So I have not invested yet myself. Locke, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I think if you like striking heavy fights, you'll probably like this one. I think this is a spot where both guys are going to want to strike. And I kind of believe that Martinez has the advantage in that aspect. I feel like he's going to be the guy coming forward. Perez has kind of been content to stay on the outside in previous fights. Martinez is taller. He's longer. I believe he's going to be faster in there. And Perez got a finish win last time out. But, it was Johnny Eduardo, who's in his 40s, and that was his third straight finish loss. And Perez, in my opinion, didn't really look great up until the finish either. Prior to that, we hadn't seen him since 2019. I don't know that he's fully been welcomed back to the game at a high level yet. I think the pace of this fight is going to be a lot more different than that one. I think Martinez is going to be a more exhausting fight, both mentally and physically. And Martinez is a southpaw. You mentioned Perez has had some success against southpaws in the UFC. Hasn't fought one in quite a while now, almost 4 years. Martinez takedown defense has also looked pretty good lately. I feel like he'll probably be able to nullify any significant grappling offense from Perez. But yeah, for this one, for me, it just comes down to Martinez is younger, faster, bigger, and I believe that he's better here. So I like Martinez. I'm a little bit more confident in him than you are, Liam, as well.
Fair play. And I think it makes a lot of sense logically. I just have this hang up on the fight where sometimes I can't pinpoint exactly what the reason is, but I just feel like I'm hesitating on the Martinez side, I think because of some of those past slip-ups in this price range. But granted, this is a favorable matchup. It makes a lot of sense stylistically. All your analysis is on point there. How about the weight factor? I know the Perez side requested that the fight be moved up to 145. Is that a factor in your capping at all?
Not really in this instance, just because it isn't Martinez. It's saying like, I need to move up in weight. I'm having trouble with the weight cut. I feel like he's in all right shape, and it's Perez that's kind of struggling a little bit. And Martinez already, in terms of, height and reach, is already bigger than him. So it's not really a big deal for me. If anything, I just feel like Perez is a little less prepared maybe than he should be for this one when I hear that.
I love it. Very sound analysis. Julian, how about you?
I think, I'm not going to lie, I agree with everything Locke said as well. I think Martinez is going to look minus 400 here. I think he wins this fight pretty easily. His takedown defense is going to hold up. And even though Perez won his last fight by submission, which I cashed at like plus 1100, I think it was, had one unit on it by submission. It's a nice win, yeah. But I got to say, I was not impressed with his performance. He was fighting an 85-year-old UFC fighter. And Perez looked horrendous. I think he lost the first round. But anyways, yeah, he looked horrendous, and I did not like what I saw. I think Martinez here is just gonna piece him up if it stays standing. If he tries to go for a takedown, his takedown defense is gonna hold up. And Martinez minus 400, easy win, in my opinion. I also like Martinez by KO. I like plus 300, I think. And yeah, that's it.
Good shout. I think that's a good way for Martinez to win this fight, is to get after him, try and touch that chin, try and exploit him like Song Yadong did early in the fight, catch him when he's cold. Especially, he's absorbed a lot of damage in his UFC career, had to step away for a while. I do think that might have been a factor in the first round of that fight, where he's kind of getting that ring rust shaken off a little bit, because I do think he looked a little bit more like himself in the second round. But you have to expect that he's going to be, a slightly diminished product over time. This is a weight class where you don't tend to see, older fighters stick around for quite as long as some of the upper weights. So I think that's a relevant factor to consider here as well. And I don't like the weight change last minute notice. That always has a little bit of sketchy air to it. Last time, I think the last big example I can remember is Nick Diaz in the Robbie Lawler fight. And then he looked physically, like a shell of himself a little bit there. So I think that's definitely a factor to consider here. What is Perez going to look like? He doesn't have the biggest frame for a 145-pound fighter. So probably going to be a little bit of body fat there. Yeah.
He looked so slow last fight. So slow. And his opponent was, what, he was 42, 43?
43. Yeah, I think it says on Tapology 41, but they announced him in the cage as 43 years old. Crazy. Crazy. Johnny Eduardo, legend of the game, man, still out there throwing calf kicks. Hard as shit. Shit.
He was piecing him up first round, and I was like, what's this guy doing? But he got the winner then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was a good fight. But we can move along to the next one here. This should be a hell of a fight. Potential for fight of the night here. We got Terrance McKinney, MMA Twitter's favorite fighter. We got Perez Ziam, and it's going to be a fight at 155 pounds. When this fight was first booked, I had a wager down. I want to say it was plus money or even money on Perez Ziam. Fight's been rebooked. Most of the market has Perez Ziam as a slight favorite now. So I have stayed away from this matchup thus far. I do think it's a pretty close matchup, but I think as the fight gets extended, Perez Ziam is probably going to have the better striking reads. I think he's going to be able to land clean, straighter punches on Terrance McKinney here. I think Terrance tends to burn through a lot of energy early. He likes to be a showman and an entertainer, kind of like Johnny Walker. And that stuff works. You can definitely knock people out. You can definitely win fights in wild fashion like that. But I also think it's a little bit lower percentage as a way of winning fights, especially the way he does it. It's one thing. Jiu-jitsu is pretty process oriented. You go step 1, step 2, step 3, and then the fight could be over right there with a choke because you can't be a tough guy about that. But some guys can take punches, they can take kicks, they can take a knee to the face, whatever it is, and take you down off of it or keep moving, keep evading, using evasive footwork. And I kind of think that the small cage is going to favor Terrance early in this fight. He's going to be able to get after some takedowns. He's probably going to be able to land some hard strikes. Perez is a little bit upright in his stance at times. That could be a bit of a concern here. But broadly speaking, I do think that Perez Ziam is a little bit he's a little bit more sound over the course of 15 minutes. I've liked some of the performances I've seen from him on the regional scene. He's had a pretty tough road to hoe in the UFC, a lot of grappling heavy matchups as well. This is somebody who might oblige him on the feet because of overconfidence. And I think that would be an avenue to a Perez Ziam KO. I do think that he can hit decently hard. I think he's a little bit underrated in the power department. And, that Luigi Vendramini KO from Paddy Pimblett, he might have a little bit to do with that because he put a lot of damage on that guy in their fight. It was a war. So I think that, Perez Ziam looks like a silly guy and whatever, and he looks a little bit thin and frail, but he's gone to war a few times and come out the other side of it and won the decision and greased some people in close decisions as well. So I don't see a reason why he couldn't do that again this weekend. I think that Terrance might leave the door open for a finish as in the later rounds, as well as, a finish in the early rounds on a crazy exchange. I think Terrance is going to put himself in danger, chin up in the air, throwing heavy bombs, and I think Perez Ziam could snipe him. So I think this should be a fun fight, a crazy fight. I could see Perez getting knocked out in the first round by like a crazy overhand. I could see Terrance just tackling him and getting on top of him and making something work from a jiu-jitsu perspective early, but I don't think Perez is a bum on the ground either. I think he's probably going to be able to find get-ups and reguards if he is taken down. So I like Perez Ziam to win the fight, and if he becomes a dog, I'll probably play him. How about you, Locke?
Yeah, this is an interesting fight. It's a fight I'm really looking forward to. I don't feel too strongly About either side in this one, to be honest. We have Terrance McKinney, really athletic and explosive fighter, and he comes forward kind of with reckless abandon, closes the distance right away. And like you said, you think he's going to put himself in danger. I agree with you. He creates a dangerous situation for his opponent, but also for himself. He needs to fight smart here. And I think that if he does, he actually does have the tools to win. One thing that we haven't seen from him in the UFC yet, he is an extremely strong wrestler. I will say, the economy of movement for Terrance McKinney at sometimes could be a little more efficient, we'll say, because he does like to be a showman. He does like these big actions that are going to be kind of eye-popping events for the judges. And, I think McKinney is a stronger wrestler than any of the three opponents Ziam has had thus far. Maybe that's a hot take. Personally, I don't think it is. We've seen Ziam get controlled before, but obviously he's the better kickboxer. He's the more technical striker, and he's going to have plenty of opportunities to land if McKinney's just going to throw caution to the wind and just brawl here. I think it would make things a lot easier on McKinney if he decides to go to the wrestling a little bit more. The cardio is a bit of a question mark. We like to say it's not good. I feel like we kind of just don't know yet. Once we really see him go past, the first round a couple more times in a couple different situations, then maybe I'll look to pass judgment there. And I mean, at the dog money, as slight as it might be, I think I'll slightly lean towards Terrance McKinney, but I don't really feel strongly about that. And I'm definitely not going to be playing a side here. I feel like the under 2.5 could be a good spot as well. I feel like McKinney could find an early finish or potentially burn himself out down the line. And like you said, Ziam with those counter strikes and just a little more polished in the stand-up. I feel like he could find a finish there late as well. So no strong feelings, but I guess I'll slightly lean towards the dog here.
I love it. So we got a little bit of dissension now. I'm on the Ziam side just a little bit. My man Locks is on the McKinney side just a little bit. Julian, settle the score. Which way is the panel leaning today?
If McKinney wrestles, I think I slightly favor McKinney here. I can see Ziam winning, but I think if McKinney decides to wrestle, then he's gonna because you said you kind of like Ziam on the floor, but I just think he's a bum when it goes to the ground. I think he's a bum, and I am going to lock in McKinney by submission at like 1100 plus 1100 because I think if McKinney goes wrestles, takes him down, he can potentially choke him out. And you're giving me plus 1100. That's just stupid. Yeah. I know the line opened at minus 120 for fight doesn't go to distance. I think I've DM'd you about this, Liam, but I couldn't get any money on it. So I missed out on that line. I was going to lay the hammer on it, like big, but I missed out on it. Now it's like, what is it at? Like minus 180, I think. I'm not too sure.
I will check right now.
But the price is, I think, minus 200, something like that. But all I remember when it was booked back in November, fight doesn't go to distance was minus 250. And now you're giving me, open at minus 120, which is stupid, I think. I think Ziam can finish him. I think McKinney can finish him. So, I don't think this is seeing the judges' scorecards. And I do like McKinney by submission here, plus 1100. McKinney round one as well. And that's about it. I don't think you can cap this fight properly because there's you can't really do much with what we've seen with McKinney if the fight goes to the late round 2, etc., etc. So, I think fight doesn't go to distance. I think McKinney submission. That's what I like here, and that's about it. Can't say much.
I definitely understand that take, and I'm looking right now. McKinney by sub has been hit market wide, my man. It is plus 900 is the best I'm seeing now on fightodds.io and best fight odds. So hopefully on a local book there you can get access, but at least stateside, it looks like we're screwed on that McKinney sub line. That has already been crushed a little bit. However, the fight doesn't go the distance, can be had for minus 188. If you are a fan of under bets, you can get the under 2.5 rounds at minus 135 at Sports Interaction. You can get it at minus 145 at MyBookie, Sport Bet, minus 141 at Pinnacle, minus 163 at Betway. So a lot of options there to play violence if you're looking to get down. So just want to point that out to the people. And want to shout out my man Danny from Pub Sports Radio. What up, Liam? Shout out my man Danny. So sorry that my man Julian's dropping the hot takes and these people are getting to him so fast, my man.
Some technical difficulties there,
but we're fine now. I forgot what we were talking about, the Ziam fight, right?
That's correct. Yeah, you were just mentioning the submission line, and I was telling you it got crushed. It's down to plus 600
Plus 600,
on FanDuel as we're talking. Oh my. Wow. So there we go.
I'm not
moving
playing that,
lines
but...
over here. I understand. But we can move along, guys. We got the next matchup will be taking place in the oh goodness gracious. There we go. I lost the Tapology page for a second. The next place will take place at women's featherweight, that looks like. My goodness, man, Josiane Nunes got to be the smallest featherweight you've ever seen. 5'2", taking on Romana Pascual. And, you know, I think this should be a fairly entertaining fight. Josiane Nunes, not really in boring fights, comes forward swinging hammers, no real regard for defense or blocking punches or things like that. She's more interested in getting after it and swinging. I did see a little bit of shoulder rolling. I did see a little bit of ducking under punches, which isn't hard for her to do because she's pretty short. A lot of her punches, or excuse me, a lot of her opponents are punching down. So they have a harder time hitting her. This was especially evident in the Bahamondes fight. That was a crazy one. And I don't know if you guys have seen, but Bahamondes put out some like statements where she's been dealing with like pretty bad concussions, and the after effects of that since the fight. So something to keep in mind there. This girl, Josiane Nunes, has concussive power in the women's divisions, and it's not all that often that we see that. I think that's a factor. I think that's a factor in the line here. And, you know, I think Romana Pascual is going to have wrestling shoes, headgear. She's going to have to get in her stance and fire off some grappling-based attacks here because Josiane Nunes has a lot of power and she's going to be a lot to deal with physically. I think she probably won't have to cut much weight at all at 145 pounds, but she's going to be strong and she's going to hit hard and she's moving pretty fast. She also doesn't throw the same punches over and over. She'll mix it up just a little bit where she'll throw the left hand as a straight. She'll throw it as an overhand. She'll put a little bit of an angle on it. She'll throw it as a hook. So she doesn't just put the same punches together all the time. She'll mix it up a little bit, but she also throws to the body. I saw her dipping down to the body, throwing hooks there as well. And that kind of boxing you don't always see in women's MMA. I haven't seen as much tape on her opponent yet, so I'm going to do my due diligence there before I lock in any plays. But I liked a lot of what I've seen from Josiane Nunes so far, and I thought that, you know, she made quick work of Bahamondes, and that fight could have been stopped probably 3 or 4 times where she was turning her back. And, man, it was a little bit of a late stoppage, probably cost her some unnecessary damage. But I haven't seen many girls besides Cyborg and Amanda Nunes dishing out concussive damage at women's featherweight. So, Locke, how do you feel about this one, my man?
Wait. Amanda Lemus? Forgot that.
Hey, she's 115. 115. I said at 145.
Oh, fair enough.
She was at 135 at her heaviest, though. So she was dealing out some concussive blows there.
She's got 145 power, though. So.
Oh, no doubt. Locke, how did you feel, my man?
Yeah, and so Nunes made her UFC debut with a bang, you know, KO'd Bahamondes pretty badly, and she draws a UFC debutante here in Romana Pascual, and I've seen a bit of support for Pascual as a dog, and I get that. She should be the better grappler here, potentially a path to victory there. This fight is at 145 now, and, you know, Romana fought at a 150-pound catchweight in her last fight for Invicta, but I believe she actually has a slightly shorter reach here, and Nunes does just kind of have that tanky build, to be fair, and I think it would have to be a pretty clean decision for Pascual to win here. I know she has plenty of early wins. I'm just not really seeing that this time personally. And I don't think that Nunes needs that same kind of a near perfect performance. I think that she can afford to be pushed against the cage or taken down a time or two because I think she has a lot more finishing upside and just needs that one shot, right? I don't really rate Ramona's strength of schedule that highly, to be honest. I think this is going to be a tough fight. Maybe the toughest fight she's had since Janae Harding, possibly tougher than Janae Harding. And I just think Nunes' power is the component of this fight with the most potential just to alter the course of this match. So I'm going to go with Josiane Nunes here. I'm not crazy about the price. I thought about the knockout. Wasn't really crazy about the price on that either, but that's kind of where my head's at for this one.
Yeah, and it's one of those rare times where you see, you know, juice towards the unders in a women's MMA fight. Under 2.5 rounds right now is minus 155. Fight doesn't go to decision is minus 180. So really, categorically different than most women's fights in terms of lines. And I think there's good reason because Josiane Nunes has that kind of crippling power. Julian, how do you feel about this?
Nunes round 1 KO.
Bang.
I think especially in the women division, having power is the biggest advantage you can have in the women division because Nunes can fucking crack. She fought a fucking NBA superstar last fight, and bang bang bang, she got her down, knocked her out, she was finished. I think Nunes here connects first round, puts her to sleep. I see people mentioning the grappling side, etc., but if you're asleep, you can't really grapple. So yeah, every fight starts standing. I think Nunes connects, puts it to sleep, and fight's over. I've got Nunes in a parlay with Martinez. We've got 3 units in it, and yeah, I like Nunes to get the KO here. I'm not playing the KO line, but I think Nunes gets a KO.
I like it. All right, so we can move on from there. We all kind of rate Josiane Nunes on the power front, and we think it's going to go one-way traffic. So Josiane Nunes at 145 pounds. We like her in the 5th matchup of the evening. Next up, guys, we've got one of the more interesting matchups on the card. We got Rong, prospect out of China, taking on Ignacio Bahamondes at 155 pounds. Lightweight matchup here, and Ignacio Bahamondes fresh off the eye-catching spinning head kick knockout of Roosevelt Roberts. And I must say that was one of my first MMA bets that I placed at the casino live, was on Ignacio Bahamondes as an underdog, and to cash it in that fashion was pretty glorious. So I will always have that memory. Thank you, Ignacio Bahamondes. But I'm going to love you and leave you in this matchup because I think this is a fairly competitive fight. Ignacio is very hittable, even in his successful performances. I think that he leaves a lot of openings for his opponent. Yes, he's a dangerous guy. Yes, he's probably got a significant striking edge here. But I do think he's going to take clean shots on the chin. I think he's going to wear damage in this fight. And I think it's possible he gets tired out from the wrestling-based approach from Rong. I do think he's going to mix in takedown attempts. I think he's going to try and push the fight into the clinch, make it dirty, control him against the fence. And it is a smaller octagon, so I think he's got a chance to do that. If this was a pick'em price, I would favor Ignacio Bahamondes. But at the given price, I'm going to go ahead and take a shot on Rong here. Also want to shout out my man Lucrative MMA. Talked about this as one of his more mispriced fights on the card, and I tend to agree with him there. Didn't go crazy because I don't want to invest too heavily in a guy like Rong, who I don't rate all that highly. But I do think he's a young enough guy, very young, early 20s, could be making significant improvements fight over fight. I do think he showed improvements from that Vargas fight where, a lot of people go through UFC jitters, they underperform, they look like complete shit, and then we see that they make evolutions fight over fight in their young career, and I think that's what we're going to see from him here. I do think that, Ignacio Bahamondes, of course he's going to get love and respect after a result like that, but it was only 2 fights ago that John McDessie gave him a brutal vet lesson where he absorbed a shit ton of damage in that fight. And granted, he was able to start coming on a little bit by round 3, but by that time, his face was already a complete mess. And John McDessie landed a lot of clean power shots on the chin that he couldn't really address. So I think that that's always going to be a danger and a liability. Hopefully he shored that up a little bit, but I think Rong is a live underdog here. Locks, how do you feel?
Yeah, before I looked into this fight, I was expecting to have a piece of Bahamondes in some capacity. Excellent striking, really big at lightweight, tall and long, and he's got good output on the feet as well. In his last fight, he stuffed 12 out of 12 takedowns, polished it off with a wheel kick KO. But yeah, once I started looking into this, I got to give Rong his just due in this one. I think he actually could have some success in the grappling. I think he's very live to crack the perfect takedown defense record of Bahamondes thus far. The question for me is how much. I think Bahamondes is going to be the better striker. I think his length and just kind of general acumen is going to lead to him kind of being on the front foot, beating Rong to the punch a little bit, and having maybe a little bit more extended success on the feet. I don't know if this is a fight Rong can win on the feet. I think he needs to definitely get this one down. I don't feel super confident in Bahamondes, but I do slightly favor him. I definitely don't want a piece of him at the current line. I actually do like the overs and this fight to go the distance, actually. I think both guys are very tough, and I think they can push each other into the deep water. And I do see this one going 3 rounds, like the overs, and fight goes here.
Awesome. A lot of that makes sense to me, man. I do think it should be a closely lined fight. I don't think either one of these guys is head and shoulders above the other. But yeah, I would slightly favor Ignacio. I think both the guys are tough. I do think there's a pathway to finish for both guys as well. Julian, how do you feel about this one?
Listen, I'm sorry, but I can't bet a guy with pink hair. Yeah, I just can't do it. This is one of the few fights that I'm intrigued to watch, but I've got no money on it at all. I don't have a single penny on anything here. No overs, no unders, neither side. I'm just gonna sit back, enjoy the fight, and that's it. Yeah, but obviously I can't bet on a guy with pink hair.
Hey, I get it, my man. I think it shows a tremendous amount of confidence from the young man Rong, and especially coming off that UFC win. I think he's going to be a bundle of confidence. I think he's going to have made some improvements here, and I'm very hopeful that he's able to make something happen as a plus 190 underdog. That's the number I locked him in at. I think that's been ate up across the market, but I do think a decent underdog price here on Rong is not a bad bet. So I'm going to take that stab here and hope for the best. Hope that Ignacio Bahamondes comes back down to earth a little bit and doesn't spinning head kick my money out of my pocket. But we can move along to the main card, guys. As we do so, just want to say, please go ahead, find my guest information in the description box below. Find them on social media. Go ahead and follow. Go ahead and get at them on their sites. Go ahead and subscribe to my man Locke's YouTube channel as well. Just support the cause. In addition, go ahead and like this video right now if you're appreciating the breakdown that we're doing. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I do this each and every week. We go down the card with a rotating series of guests, and we do a pretty damn good job. Profitable last year, 70% so far on UFC predictions in 2022. Get on board now. Subscribe to the channel. Appreciate all 46 people live rocking with us in the chat. I see Diehard MMA is in here. Uncle Wheezy, absolute goats, legends. Appreciate you guys tremendously for being here. And thank you once again to my guests for making time for the show. But right now, we've got a fight that I know I'm fired up about. I've got a good amount of action on. And I think it should be good fun, man. This is one of the ones that's like splitting the capping community. I think there's going to be sharp money on both sides of this fight. And I do think it's a little bit binary, right? I could see the other side winning this fight. I bet on Armen Petrosyan here. And I think that he has a pathway to beating Gregory Rodriguez. But I could see Robocop, who has real jiu-jitsu credentials, getting on the back early and causing problems for this guy. But what I've liked from Armen Petrosyan is that a lot of guys have approached him with a similar idea of how they're going to win the fight. They're going to take him down. They're going to get after him early. They're going to try and drain the gas tank. And what happens is he's very physical. He's very strong, and he builds back up to his feet, and he's pretty hard to hold down. A lot of people have talked about his kickboxing background. He's a Russian Muay Thai fighter. And he talked about after his Contender Series fight, he was wilding a little bit, but he was saying, I want Adesanya next. That's the fight that I want. Russian Muay Thai wants this fight next. That's what he's saying in terms of his striking pedigree. And I do think that when this guy is on the feet, he lights people up. No, he is not Georgie Petrosyan's brother. I know everybody's going to make that joke this week, but this guy is for real on the feet. He's got a lot of power. Yes, he was knocked out, in cold in the early goings of a fight, like 50 seconds in or whatever. I believe that was a championship title defense for a regional promotion that comes with whatever stress that is. I believe he was the local star in that fight, taking on the foreign Iranian there. So, there are some factors working against him. I don't think he's a bad fighter. I do think that if he swings on the feet with Gregory Rodriguez, he's more likely than not going to come out the better side of that. I think Gregory Rodriguez is a talented guy, but we see after that 7-minute mark, it's not like he gives up. It's not like he quits on himself. His lactic acid buildup or something is just causing him to look like he's underwater. And he was able to knock out Jin Young Park because they were swinging like madmen in the pocket. And I had a bet on him there. I kind of thought he was going to get the job done, and he was able to. But he continues to spend his durability in his fights, fight over fight. And it's not that long ago he was knocked out by Jordan Williams, who's a pretty low-level UFC fighter. I think people are forgetting that because he's had some recent success. And I do think he's a talented guy, but he's not a guy who's going to push the wrestling on you nonstop. And maybe he'll adjust in this fight. That would be good fight IQ. I'd have to, cap that in moving forward. But a lot of times he wrestles incidentally. He wrestles when it becomes, convenient for him or because somebody else pushed into the clinch. He doesn't come out every fight with his headgear and his singlet on, ready to push the issue on somebody. And I think that could cause him problems here because the longer this fight is on the feet, the more dangerous it is for Robocop. He's not a fish out of water. He's not going to not offer threats back. He's going to throw pretty basic 1-2s, committed with power, and he might throw a body kick or a low kick behind it. But I don't really see him throwing something at Armen on the feet that Armen's not familiar with. I think Armen's going to be able to deal with a lot of the shots that he sees, react, and counter. And I think he's going to be able to potentially finish this fight. So I like Armen Petrosyan to win this fight. Locks, how do you feel?
Yeah, this should be a really fun fight. We have two Contender Series alums here who have taken different paths. Petrosyan making his debut in the big show after getting a round 1 knockout on Dana White's Contender Series. Then we have Rodriguez, who was the victim of a round 1 KO on Contender Series back in 2020. He goes over to LFA, gets 2 round 1 KOs of his own, second one to become the middleweight champ over there when he defeated Josh Fremd, who recently just got signed to the UFC on the looking for a fight card. And Rodriguez is a dangerous striker, but Petrosyan is too. Can Rodriguez hang on the feet with Petrosyan? Potentially. I don't really think he should be trying to look to prove that here. Petrosyan can be taken down. I think that Rodriguez has the edge on the mat, and I think that's where he needs to focus his game plan for this fight. If they exchange on the feet, I think it's going to be a bloodbath type of fight. It'll be thoroughly entertaining. Either man could fall at any point. I think Petrosyan is probably the better pure striker here. Rodriguez does have the benefit of being a little bit longer, but I think that basically Rodriguez has the grappling path and then Petrosyan has the striking path here. If this fight is going to primarily play out at distance, I think that Petrosyan is going to have some real success if Rodriguez is able to impose his will, and assuming that will is to grapple, I think that's a very good area for him to exploit. I think that Rodriguez can be competitive striking for as much as he needs to be, and I think he will be the superior grappler. So I actually do like him to win. I don't mind the sub prop there. I'm not sure what the price is right now, and I also obviously don't mind fight doesn't go the distance. I'm sure that's not really a good number anymore, though.
To your point on Gregory Rodriguez, I'm looking now at the advanced analytics, and so far in his UFC bouts, he spent 28% of his bouts grappling. So 75% of his fights are being spent, at distance. And that I feel like is something that's going to just spell disaster for him here. Like you mentioned, the grappling path is there. If he chooses to wrestle, he could hindsight look like a bigger favorite. But I also think that based on what we've seen so far and based on the sample size that we have, I do think there's a lot of value potentially on the underdog here. And, there's been some market inefficiencies, in my opinion, in terms of the pricing being so different from his money line and his inside the distance. When this is a fight that's likely to be fireworks, high pace, Rodriguez fights are high pace just about every time. Petrosyan fights, you could say largely the same thing. So I think it's going to be a high pace, high exchange rate fight that favors violence, that favors unders. I think those are heavily juiced for a reason. And yet the Petrosyan KO line is like plus 200. It's not as tightly correlated with the money line as I would have thought. And, I even sniped out a 1 unit play on the inside the distance at plus 225, which is better than the market on the KO. So that was a play I liked as well. Julian, how do you feel about this?
I'm with you here, Liam. Armen Petrosyan. I think this is one of the fights I'm looking forward to the most. Last fight, Park versus Rodriguez. Park literally has an unconscious man in front of him, and he can't even pick his shots and finish him. If Petrosyan puts what's his name, Rodriguez, in the same exact position, he's going to sleep. He's going to pick his shots. He's sleeping the kid. I do think Rodriguez could land takedowns pretty easily, but I think Petrosyan is going to be able to get up and get taken down again, get up again, get taken down again, get up again. But round 2, he's just gonna bang bang, put him to sleep, and it's good night. I've got 3 units on Petrosyan at plus 150. I'm tempted to add a unit on him to finish inside the distance at plus 225 at bet 365. But I don't know yet. I was also debating hedging a bit with Rodriguez by submission, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna do it. I'm not really a type of guy that hedges. I like just going all in on the guy that I think is gonna win, and just if I lose, I lose. If I win, it's red panty night, as they say.
I love it. And just to give a little bit of credibility here, because I know the guy gets grief for his wrestling and his grappling. I went through his Instagram. I like to do that little bit of a stalk and see what I can find. He's pictured with the best wrestler on planet Earth, Abdul Rashid Sajulayev, excuse me. So like the guy is hanging out with the best Dagestani wrestlers in his Instagram photos, FYI, for anybody who thinks that he doesn't know how to wrestle at all. And on top of that, he's talked about in his interviews, he's like, I am a Muay Thai guy, so I know everybody's going to want to wrestle me. So I spend time all the time working with the best Dagestani wrestlers. And I believe that he's doing that. I believe he's fully situated to get great work in. And, barring like geopolitical influences, I think that he should be performing ably this weekend. And I'm really excited to see his future in the UFC. Both these guys have very bright potential futures if they can win this fight. And so I'm excited to see how it turns out. But I do think there's that ceiling on Gregory Rodriguez in the sense that, guys that are going to be able to push the pace, stay durable, compete with him in the grappling realm, I think are going to give him a lot of problems. This is, very good matchmaking by the UFC. Path to victory for both guys, but giving me that plus 150 on the underdog, I'll take that. So we can move along to – oh, yes, sir.
He's got a good get-up game. I think 5 minutes, Rodriguez is going to be suffering cardiac arrest. Round two, he's going to sleep. Hopefully. We'll see.
Yes, knock on wood. That's what we're hoping for on this side as well. Next up, guys, we've got one of the best fights on the card. Simply don't understand why this fight is not a main event, but instead it will be the 8th fight on an 11-fight card. We've got Arman Tsarukyan, another Armenian by way of Russia, just like Armen. We got Arman and Arman Tsarukyan, one of the best lightweight prospects in the world. And he kind of burst onto the scene in a big way when he fought Islam Makhachev. It was on short notice. Islam needs a fill-in. And then all of a sudden, they're like, man, who's this guy that we got off the regionals that's given our show boy a run? And I think that Armen, his grappling in that fight is very sound. He's a dangerous guy. He also can compete on the feet with people. And, he's been knocked out cold. I think it was like, 19 years of age or something like this. He's one of these born fighters, getting out there at an early age, putting himself on the line. And I don't think there's as much patty caking in the regional scene in Russia as there is in other parts of the world. But overall, I like what I've seen from this guy in terms of development as he's gotten into the UFC over the course of his UFC bouts. He's proven that he could go 15 minutes. He could wrestle hard for 15 minutes. He could take guys down 10 times. Matt Favola, that was an impressive performance there. And then he can strike on the feet. Christos Giagos, he knocked him out with clever, precise striking. I think he's getting a little bit more comfortable on his feet. I think he should also just go to what works very well in this fight. And he had a little bit of a hang-up wrestling Christos Giagos in the early going, so he just knocked him out. But I do think that in this fight, he's going to be insistent on the wrestling. And Joel Alvarez, very dangerous guy, talented guy. He's got strikes. He's got, knees, elbows. He can do a lot of work in the clinch. But he's a little bit predictable when he's throwing on the feet. He likes to go 2-1 and a leg kick, right? And he does it as people are exiting range. I don't think that Arman's the guy who's going to exit range when he starts throwing leg kicks. I think he's the guy who's going to level change and blow right through him. He's a very strong guy physically. And I do think that if he's forced to make the weight, it's going to be, a little bit of a diminishment. Like it's going to hurt for Joel Alvarez because he's a huge guy. He's got a very big frame. I think he will suffer more to make this weight class. To point out, I know that Arman is not training at American Top Team for this fight. He's trained at some of the best camps in the world, Tiger Muay Thai, American Top Team. He's now training at his local camp for this fight. That being said, he said Pahumpa designed his camp for him, has been coaching him through the whole way. So American Top Team still has a hand in the Arman Tsarukyan game planning for this fight. And he's been working with talented guys, credentialed boxers. I looked into some of the guys he's worked with. Granted, a lot of them are featherweights, which I didn't love to see, but I think that he should be prepared for everything that Alvarez has to offer here. Alvarez recently promoted to a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so he does have threats in the grappling department. But when you start to look at some of the quality of the wins he has, the guys have retired right after the fights. The guys have been cut right after the fights. The guys just haven't really stuck around in the UFC. And the Thiago Moises win, which is his best win and a win that surprised me, in fairness, that came from him backing up Thiago early with the striking and Thiago not really offering any semblance of a grappling threat in that fight. He didn't attempt any takedowns. He didn't level change. He didn't really push into the clinch. He kind of just got stuck like a deer in headlights. That also came right off the heels of the beatdown from Islam Makhachev. So his confidence was at an all-time low. And then they put him in there with a guy who misses weight pretty significantly, who's already massive, and who came in with a ball of confidence on a big winning streak and just barreled through him when he had no confidence. And I don't think we're going to see that in this fight. Arman Tsarukyan has all the confidence in the world. He's on his own winning streak here. He knows that he can compete with the best guys. Everybody in the division is like hailing Islam as the next champion. And this guy went toe-to-toe with him and proved at a young age that he can hang. I think that he's only going to continue to stack bricks and get better as his career goes on. So I like Arman Tsarukyan. He is the just win baby, and Liam picks fights, best money line of the week. And we really like him to get the job done here. I know Joel Alvarez is a popular underdog. Think he's a good fighter. Think he has a bright future. Think he's got the wrong guy this weekend. Arman Tsarukyan is the real deal, in my opinion, and I think he's going to get the job done. Lox, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, first things first, what a fight this is. This is the matchup I'm most hyped for on the whole card. And this is two really top prospects with similar career trajectories at this point. Both lost their UFC debut, both won 4 straight, and now they're going to meet. Someone's streak's going to come to an end, and the other guy's going to surge ahead. And the first thing that comes to mind for me in this matchup is just the size of Joel Alvarez. He's huge at 155. If someone came to you and said, I want to fight in MMA, like, what weight class should I choose? Okay, well, how big are you? 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. Like, what are you going to say? Middleweight? Like light heavyweight maybe? Like, this guy's huge. And the guy's at 155 pounds, or so we hope. Wasn't there last time. Can't be easy to get this guy down to 155. Like you said, Liam, I think he's definitely going to be the one suffering more in the weight cut to make this weight. He's got 100% finish rate, though, inside the UFC, 2 KOs, 2 subs. The guy's a special talent. Hadn't beaten the strongest strength of schedule, but the Thiago Moises win was really nice last fight. And, he's gotten 4 guys out of there in a row in the UFC. That's nothing to scoff at. Tsarukyan, also a very, very good prospect. Amazing wrestler. 10 takedowns over Matt Frivola, who is no slouch in the wrestling. Partly got so many because Frivola kept getting back up, but he's shown some really good striking chops as well. In most of his fight, I feel like he's been the superior striker at range. And aside from Islam Makhachev, always been the superior grappler. And he scored his first UFC finish with a round 1K over Giago's last fight. Dominant win. I don't know if he's fought anybody at the level of Joel Alvarez yet. Also, Giagos and Makhachev were the 2 tallest fighters he's faced. Both of them were 5'10". He's never fought anyone with a reach advantage, certainly the reach advantage that Joel Alvarez is going to have. And I also don't know that he's been in there with a guy who's going to hit him like Joel Alvarez will. So I think early when Tsarukyan was like minus 360, like minus 300, I don't really feel like the line was reflecting how tough of a matchup this is going to be properly. So I actually took a piece of Joel Alvarez at plus 235. But I have to agree, if I was going to line this fight, I'm still going to have Tsarukyan as a slight favorite. I just felt like there was a little bit of value on that Alvarez line. So I do have a piece of that. But gun to my head, just straight up, no betting lines involved who I think is going to win. I probably still do favor Tsarukyan here, but at the number, I liked Alvarez. So going with him, hoping he pulls off the upset.
I definitely get that. And when I first thought about this matchup, I thought of everything that you pointed out. And I also looked and I'm like, man, this guy's been just critically undervalued in the UFC. And I do think that that's part of why he's so enticing as an underdog this weekend, right? It's like, I don't want to miss out if this guy does it again and cashes another big underdog ticket. But I also think there's a reason he was lined as an underdog in some of those fights, which is that, barring the finish, especially the early finish in a lot of these fights, what does the fight look like? What is the win equity there? And I do think that becomes an open question because what we see from a lot of guys, like, for example, Matt Frivola, when they get taken down, they want to hop right back up to their feet. They want to explode out. They want to find a way to get back out and up to their feet. And Joel Alvarez doesn't really do that. He wants to regard. He wants to attack from the triangle. He wants to throw up elbows and shots from the bottom. He's kind of just like a different challenge in that way. But I also think that sometimes, if you allow people to pass to the half guard and they're super heavy top players like an Armen, it's going to be very hard to start bucking him and getting back out from underneath him. So that's where I view the matchup as favoring Armen. But man, it's certainly compelling on paper, and especially because of that size differential. Weigh-ins have never been so interesting as when Joel Alvarez fights. Julian, how do you feel about this one?
Laid the hammer on Tsarukyan. Basically, first I put 7 units at -200. Chilling downstairs, having dinner, normal day. I'm like, let me check Bet365 like I do. I'm seeing -189. So I cash out my first bet at -200. Then I put 7 units at -189. Snipe that shit. And obviously there's no invisible units here. So that you can see that 700 on Tsarukyan. I think I got the best price that you could possibly get. Because I think 10 minutes after I placed it, it was back under -200. But correct me if I'm wrong, Yoel Alvarez hasn't defended a single takedown in the UFC. Not one. Not a single takedown. And then, cool, Yoel Alvarez kicks him. Tsarukyan is grabbing that leg and putting that motherfucker down, I think. I think if you put a gun to my head, you tell me I need to pick one winner in the UFC, for this event on Saturday to stay alive, I'm picking Armen Tsarukyan here. I mean, I think he takes him down. I don't think he submits him. Listen, I think Ramos murders Yoel Alvarez. And you watch Ramos versus Tsarukyan. I know MMA math doesn't really add up, etc., yeah. But I think Ramos finishes Yoel Alvarez. And then Tsarukyan just dealt with him. And then you watch Tsarukyan versus Islam Makhachev. Makhachev looked tired as fuck that third round. And, you got to respect it. It's Makhachev. I think Yoel Alvarez gets taken down. Can't do fuck all in bottom. Tsarukyan passes quite easily and just gets an easy 30-27, maybe 30-26. And we cashed the 7 unit bet and happy days. I need to make one thing clear. I'm a big fan of Yoel Alvarez. I've made a lot of money betting him. I've betted him against Thiago Moises at +225. I haven't lost a single bet on Yoel Alvarez in the UFC. Every fight I've been on the right side. But I think the winning streak comes to an end here. Tsarukyan, top 5 lightweight in my opinion, and gets a nice 30-26 W this weekend.
Man, I will say this. The only place that we are going to dissent there is just that I think he's live for the finish here as well. Joel Alvarez, if he gets that guard passed, Armen can open up with some ground and pound. I think he can get off some hard damage there. And also, if he starts to slow down from the pressure grappling-based approach, the kind of guys that have actually caught Joel in the past and hurt him, and the time that he was knocked out was by a 5'9" Russian guy who spinning head kicked him. And I'm not saying that that's, if you had to give a prediction for this fight, that wouldn't be my prediction, but I also don't think it's outside the bounds that Armen, knocks this guy out on the feet if they are on the feet at some point when he's tired, because Armen keeps a pretty high pace. And, that fight against Islam was on short notice. So he got a little bit tired in that fight as well. Both guys were feeling the pace of that fight, but they fought at an insane pace. And he took Islam down. I believe the first guy in the UFC to do so, but it was a clean takedown, pressed him into the fence, extended exchange, locked the double leg, stepped through, lifted him high, turned him. It's like, that's high level shit. And I do think that, Islam would teach Joel Alvarez a thing or two if they were to fight today. And, that would be a finish for the Islam side. And I do think it speaks volumes that Tsarukyan was able to go the distance with him. Like Julian mentioned, the win over Ramos, the win over Frivola. These are a bunch of credible grapplers. I know Frivola is not on the same level as the other two, but I just mean he's a wrestler with a grappling background as well. I believe he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. And again, it was a pretty clean performance there. So I think Armen could stay safe. I think he could exit the guard if he needs to, stand up, kick the legs a couple of times, try and pass away a little time like that if he's feeling the effects on the lungs. But otherwise, if he's feeling fresh in this fight, I think he's definitely live for the finish. And I do think that he has a path to submit Joel Alvarez as well. Armen is a high-level grappler. He puts a lot of pace, pressure, and damage on people, and that makes them make bad decisions. And, Joel Alvarez, he tends to be the bully in a lot of his fights. He's huge. He's got a grappling upside. A lot of guys don't want to grapple with him. I think this might be a surprising outcome for him, and I think that he might get overwhelmed here by the pressure. So I think Armen inside the distance is live as well later in this fight. So that's something I'm going to be looking at as we go. He was a pretty prolific finisher outside the UFC, and I do think that he's starting to find his footing a bit more in the organization, starting to feel a little bit more confident, letting loose like he did in the Giagos fight, and I think he might find the finish here. My man Jack says Armen was the first to take him down in the UFC. So, big feather in the cap for Armen Tsarukyan.
Yeah, I also like
Yes,
Armen. There's Armen round 3 or decision plus 140. That's a wonderful price. That's
clean. That's
I've
clean.
already got 7 units on Armen, and I've got another max bet which we'll talk about later on. But I might be adding a bit more on Tsarukyan here, but I'm already kind of deep in him, but we'll see.
I like it. All right, we can move along, guys. We got the next fight on the card here. We can be a little bit more brief on this one. We got Priscilla Cachoeira taking on Ji-Yeon Kim. And, Kim has kind of had a little bit of a tough road to hoe in the UFC. Lost to Molly McCann, lost to Alexa Grasso. That was a competitive decision, which is, I think, where people give her some credence. She beat the not very good Nadia Kassem. She lost to Antonina Shevchenko in 2018. Not a very good loss, hasn't aged particularly well there. So on the other side, Priscilla Cachoeira, everybody hates this girl because she's a cheater. She eye gouges. She's just a little bit of a dirty, rotten cage fighter at the end of the day. But I do think she has some power. And we mentioned before, power is a big factor in these women's fights. I think that, Ji-Yeon Kim, I could see her winning minutes by throwing a little bit more committed volume here, by just trying to stay active with the punches, by potentially mixing in some grappling. But if she doesn't do that, I do think that there's a chance Priscilla Cachoeira can land damaging and potentially fight-changing shots in this fight. So, I would be looking underdog or pass here personally. I don't have any action or investment on this fight. It's one of the fights I've looked into a little bit less. But yeah, I don't think that, Molly McCann and Antonina Shevchenko are wonderful losses to have, in your UFC run. And the Nadia Kassem win doesn't really tell me a lot. So mostly she's done a lot of losing to UFC quality fighters, I would think. Lox, how do you feel?
Yeah, this is a fight where it's kind of hard to have a strong opinion on this one for me. Kim is coming in on the heels of a split decision loss to Molly McCann, and she's a pretty solid fighter. She'll enjoy a nice reach advantage in this matchup as well, and you got to like that in a fight that I expect will be upright for the majority of the time. I think Kim probably technically skill for skill is the better fighter, but she's going to have to keep her level up for 15 minutes. And as much as I'm not very high on Cachoeira, she has a grit and a willingness to come forward, and she hits pretty hard. And Kim is sometimes willing to fight on the back foot a little bit, which is okay. But I mean, if the striking exchanges are relatively even, but then Cachoeira is the one coming forward, lands a few more eye-popping shots for the judges, I mean, this fight could really be up in the air. I think the first round could be really close. I think Cachoeira is going to have a strong start. I think she probably starts to slow up a little bit as the fight wears on. Like I said, I believe Kim is the more skilled fighter, but I'm not willing to get behind her at the price. This is kind of a classic pass fight for me. I don't feel too strongly about either side. I think if I had to pick someone, I'm going to pick Kim to win a decision, but it's not a spot that I feel good about or I would want to have any money on.
I like it. Sound analysis. Julian, how do you feel?
Trash fight. Hate this fight. I think worst fight on the card. I think the fight goes to distance, but I've got no money on it. I don't have a single penny on this fight. I don't like anything. Casera's a bitch after what she did in the last fight. Fucking just disgusting. Yeah. I don't have any money on it. I hate it. I hate the fight. I think it's doggo pass, but yeah, I'm not playing anything. Maybe the fight comes on, I'll just be on my phone or something. Yeah, I don't like the fight. Shit fight.
I totally understand.
I preferred the Hannah Goldie fight, which got cancelled. I had a bit of money against Hannah Goldie there, but that got cancelled. And yeah, I don't know why this fight is on the main card now. It should.
And how is this above the Tsarukyan fight? This is literally like the UFC saying outright, like, go get pizza, pick up your beer, like, do whatever you need to do, go to the bathroom. Like, just this is your come down spot after this great fight. And then, we move back on to, honestly, a pretty tepid co-main event, if I do say so myself. You've got the, two guys who are streaking just downwards. Misha Cirkunov, a lot of knockout losses in the UFC, a lot of questionable performances, kind of some fluky looking wins. The Jim Crute fight comes to mind where, it's all going wrong until it goes right suddenly in that fight. And that was kind of an abysmal fight against Jotko, huh? I had some money on Jotko there. Didn't feel great about it, but I did think that, it was a pretty clean win for Jotko. And Misha Cirkunov, I don't know what to make of him at this point. Wellington Turman is like not a good fighter, right? And I thought he had every chance to beat Bruno Silva, and then he falls over the top and instantly dies. I was like, oh my God, Wellington Turman, are you kidding me? And, he doesn't really have anything he's exceptionally good at. But when I look at this particular matchup on paper, I'm like, this is a winnable matchup for Wellington Turman. I don't think the UFC is trying to move forward with Misha Cirkunov. Maybe this is their attempt to give him like one last rebuilding. I don't think so. I think this is them like trying to usher him out the door, trying to get Wellington Turman some momentum to try and do something with him. He's a young guy. He's getting some UFC experience at an early age. His chin's a little bit questionable for sure, but this is a kind of fight where, we don't really see Cirkunov test the chin of many guys. He's very afraid to strike at this point in his career because of his knockout losses. Turman, I can't really say he's afraid to strike. He'll get in there and swing. He just has no chin. Andrew Sanchez knocked him out. That was like a really poor loss in terms of how it's aged. But in the fights that go 15 minutes, Turman is relatively competitive. He's not, a world beater. He's not going to blow anybody out, I don't think. But if there's anybody he could knock out, it's probably Misha Cirkunov, who's pretty fragile. And who's going to be, shelling up if he's on the feet or controlled at any point. But I do think Cirkunov has the grappling upside here. Technically in the first round, he's probably just a little bit more sharp. I do think that the camp that Turman comes out of is solid though. He's training with Glover Teixeira and those guys, they work really hard. Turman is like a consistent training partner for Glover. He's like a work in progress at the gym. And I think that there's more of a chance he comes out here with a renewed game and something to prove than Misha Cirkunov, who's kind of been stuck in the mud throughout his UFC run. And I think his body looks a little weird at 85. I don't know how much I like this move for him physically. I don't know that I like anything about it. So give me Wellington Turman, I guess. But I have no passion about this fight. I don't know that I'll get to a bet of any kind on this fight. But either guy to win by knockout is something I'd at least consider because neither one of them has a great chin. Locke, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, so Cirkunov's coming in here almost 10 years older than his opponent. He's almost 35 years old now. Youth definitely not on his side. Size is, though, healthy advantages in the height and reach. Turman, on the other hand, nicknamed the Prodigy. I don't think he's left most of us with the impression that he's living up to that name thus far on the UFC. Did pick up a win over Sam Alvey in his last fight. But, Serkinov's a good grappler, and Terman is currently sporting a perfect takedown defense record at 100%, although that's only 4 attempts, right? So I think the striking is going to be competitive. Terman does, routinely get outstruck at distance. Roberson outstruck him to a victory. Guys that he is competitive with are guys like Marcus Perez, who went on to lose another 2, get bounced from the UFC. He's 1-1 on the regionals. And then Sam Alvey. Andrew Sanchez KOs him in 1. Bruno Silva does the same. Give him a bit of a pass on that one. I think Bruno Silva is a pretty decent fighter. But yeah, Terman has one of his better performances last fight in the form of a split decision win over Sam Alvey. That doesn't exactly inspire a ton of confidence in me. I think that Cirkunov is going to bring a bit of a different type of grappling pressure to Terman. I think it's very likely we see Cirkunov ruin that perfect 100 in the takedown defense column for Terman here. I think he's going to be stronger in those exchanges. And Cirkunov, there was a time where he outstruck Ian Kutalaba before getting him down in the 3rd and finishing him. And I thought he was okay in the later rounds against Jocko last time out. I think Terman is definitely live in this fight because of the youth and maybe some explosiveness, maybe some cardio, maybe some other things that he's afforded because of the youth advantage. Skill for skill, though, I still feel like Cirkunov is the better fighter. Maybe I look crazy at the end of this. I like the size advantage for him, too. And at the really, close to even money, I do like Misha Cirkunov in this one.
I totally understand the look, man. And I have just decided at a certain point, I believe it was the Ryan Spann fight, that I will never bet on Misha Cirkunov again, because that was the most winnable fight on paper for him of all time. The guy can't grapple. The guy is very hittable. The guy doesn't have a great chin. And he couldn't get the job done. I was like, I'm just never betting this guy again. That was it for me. I signed out, and I feel comfortable with that decision, whether he wins another fight in the UFC or he doesn't. I thought the Jocko matchup was about as winnable as it gets. I'm like, the guy can't knock you out in all likelihood. So it's like, what are you going to do to lose this fight? Found a way. Julian, how do you feel about this one?
Come on, man. He's training with Glover now. I like the Wellington Terman side a bit more. I think Terman should be the favorite here. I think Terman. Oh, I like that point deduction prop as well, which I can see on the screen. But yeah, I think Wellington Terman here should be the favorite. I mean, he's a younger fighter. Cirkunov maybe takes him down, but he's going to be gassed after that. I did not like that last fight Cirkunov had. He just looked slow. He looked like he's 75 years old. I did not like that fight. I think Wellington Terman flying knee KO. Pereira must have taught him a thing or two. He's gonna fly knee KO him round 2, put him down, finish him, and yeah, I'm joking, but I think Terman gets a W here. I favor Terman. I haven't played anything yet, but I am looking to play the Terman side. I was on the Cirkunov fight first pre-tape, but now I'm all over Wellington Terman here.
Absolutely, my man. I'm with you. Haven't played it. Like I mentioned, kind of waiting to see what happens with the line. Seeing a lot of love for Cirkunov, and I get it. There's just a lot of tape to go back and watch and say, man, this guy Misha Cirkunov, when he puts it all together, he's very good. I just think the ship might have sailed on him a little bit. I think he's kind of grasping for straws at this point in his career. Is it the weight class? Is it this? And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he has a hard time going 15 minutes. Iwan Kutalaba at the time was like the perfect matchup for him because he can't go 15 minutes either. So it's like, if you want a death gas, at least get a guy who death gasses harder than you do. But I do think it's going to be a tougher one here. Wellington Terman doesn't bring much to the table except like hard work, willingness to show up, and cardio. And I think that might just end up being enough here. And I also think that like can-do attitude, working with the champ, finally gets a win over somebody who's technically credible in Sam Alvey. And maybe he can parlay that into some confidence. This is going to be a fight of 2 very low confidence fighters. We could very well get a staring match in this matchup, but I still look forward to it because it could be good theater. So with that being said, guys, we are approaching the main event. We got 47 people rocking live with us. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. Want to ask you right now, go ahead and like this video. Make sure we have at least 47 likes on there. Go ahead and get subscribed to the channel if you're not already. Thank you to the 825 plus subscribers that we now have on the channel, growing day by day. Appreciate you guys for all your support. Can't do it without you. Go ahead, share this show on social media with a friend who might like it as well. We always appreciate when you do. with that being said, guys, we're on to the main event. It's Bobby King Green steps up to save the day because one of my other favorite fighters, Benny Dariush, went ahead and broke that leg of his. So he's got to get that fixed before he can get back in the octagon. So we've got Islam Makhachev. Simply put, one of the best fighters on planet Earth, guys. When you watch the tape on this guy, I think that becomes apparent. He's a very good fighter. He's complete. He can fight in every phase of the game. He's got clever process to what he does. He forces guys by his wide striking arsenal into a clinch-based scenario where they're on the inside. He wraps up overhooks, and now we're wrestling, baby. And he'll do it a ton of different ways. He'll trip you to the outside. He'll throw you over the hip. He'll step through. He'll inside-out trip you. He just has a lot to offer you in those clinch positions. And Bobby Green, on the other hand, he's got a lot to offer you everywhere. Bobby Green's been in a million cage fights. The guy's been fighting all his life. This is his job. He is a professional fighter in every sense of the word. I've been watching Bobby Green since the Josh Thompson fight. Always loved this guy. Always thought the antics were hysterical. Think that he's been jobbed out in a bunch of fights in the UFC. But with that being said, I do think that Islam represents a style matchup that Bobby Green doesn't really face very often. And that we haven't really seen him face, the dominant pressure style grappler. And some of the analogs that you think of, the Clay Guidas of the world. And Bobby was able to have some grappling success of his own in that fight. He was able to get back up to his feet. He was able to outland him on the feet. And Bobby Green can exploit a striking-based advantage on a lot of guys. And I was very confident. I bet 3.5 units on the money line that Bobby Green was going to do that to Nasrat Haqparast, who doesn't really have a wrestling game to offer. I thought Bobby had the wrestling and grappling upside in that matchup, and I thought he was going to box him up on the feet, and he boxed him the hell up on the feet, and Bobby Green can do that to a lot of guys. But Islam Makhachev gets hit very infrequently, and he doesn't spend all that much time at distance, but he's been at distance now with some credible guys, Drew Dober, he spent some minutes at distance with before he was able to get the takedown in round 1. He spent time on the feet with Thiago Moises, who likes to counter strike and wasn't really able to get anything off in terms of effective counter shots on Islam in that fight. So I think that Islam is a really, tough puzzle to solve. I think a lot of guys are going to have a hard time knowing where to approach this guy, how to stop his dominant offense. And, let's say we get exchanges on the feet. I do think Bobby Green is going to throw more volume, but Bobby Green doesn't really have much of a power threat. And Islam Makhachev, I've seen him knock dudes clean out with punches. And guys around Bobby Green's age, by the way, which is one thing that concerns me here. Bobby has been flatlined by southpaws before. He has been flatlined period before. So I don't think that it's outside the realm that Islam Makhachev knocks out Bobby Green if this fight is on the feet. That might be a hot take for me, but I do believe in that. I also believe that Bobby Green has some upside to knock out Islam in this fight. It's a limited upside. Bobby doesn't have a tremendous amount of power, but this is the striking game. This is throwing a lot of volume to try and land an accumulation of shots. And we have seen Islam slow down in some fights, like you mentioned. When people resist his grappling onslaught and know how to wrestle back, like Arman Tsarukyan, they can offer a little bit more resistance and make the guy a little bit more tired. Whereas guys that concede the grappling positions and play guard, like Drew Dober and Dan Hooker, are just going to get run over. Bobby Green's not playing guard. I can tell you that for sure. Bobby Green might get stuck in guard at points in this fight, but I do believe Bobby Green will be wrestling back up to his feet or trying to. And I believe that puts him in danger of being submitted. Islam is good at sneaking in the hooks on the back. He is very proficient on the ground. He forces guys into worse and worse positions. He'll force you into side control, go to knee on belly, make you give up the mount, make you give up the back. He'll flow through a series of positions. And I think that for that reason, Bobby's going to have a hard time, man. When I watch Bobby's grappling matches, he's not an exceptional grappler. He's a okay grappler. He's a MMA grappler, right? He can do a lot of things that are effective in MMA to stop people from grappling him. But this is the best grappler he's faced in a long time. This is the best striker he's faced since Fiziev. And so, Fiziev was able to get the better of him on the feet. I will grant that was a competitive fight. Bobby Green made an honest and solid account of himself, especially in round 3 of that fight. However, I think Bobby Green's just got an uphill march here that's going to be too much to overcome. He just had a fight. He didn't have much time to recover from that fight. He's probably going to come in here in pretty decent shape, ready to go 3 hard rounds. Maybe he can do 5 rounds. I think on a normal camp, Bobby Green could do 5 rounds hard, but this is not going to be that. And on top of that, Bobby Green's 35, and some of the underperformances that we've seen from Bobby Green, like the Thiago Moises fight, where a lot of people, myself included, think he could have won that fight on the scorecards. However, it wasn't the same amount of output from Bobby Green. He was getting caught a little bit more, and that was his 4th UFC fight that year. So when Bobby Green is a little bit too active, I think it's cost him in the past. It could cost him again on Saturday night. He is a gangster. He deserves our respect. He is the man for stepping up and saving this fight card on short notice, but he's got his hands full. I'm picking Islam Makhachev to win the fight, and I think he probably gets it done in the later rounds inside the distance. And I say inside the distance because I think it is possible he wins this with an accumulation of strikes. Bobby Green has a good chin. He's got a good heart. He's going to keep trying to move. But positional TKOs are always going to be live when you have somebody who control grapples like Islam, who will be willing to sit up and throw strikes. And frankly, he has great posture where he can sit on people against the fence on their legs and throw shots in close. And I think that that's a path to finishing this fight as well, as Green tires later in the fight. So I love Bobby Green. I will be rooting for him this weekend, but I'm going to have to pick Islam Makhachev and kick it to my man Lucky. How do you feel about this one? Do you rate it as a main event, and who do you favor?
Yeah, I think it should be a fun fight. I mean, listen, it sucks that Dariush is out, but I'm thankful that we still get to see Makhachev on this card. It would have been even worse if just the whole fight fell off. And, we had Cirkunov and Turman as the main event, right? Like, I don't know what they would have put up there in the spot. So, respect to Bobby Green for stepping up to save the event, but he's going to be up against it here. As soon as this fight was announced, I kind of instantly knew this was a fight I wouldn't have a bet on either of the money lines. And the reason for that is A, I knew the Makhachev line was going to be unplayable straight. And B, I felt very confident that he was going to win the fight. So should Islam be like, I don't even know what he is now, -7, 8, 900? Would I personally line it there? Probably not. No, but I would bet Bobby because there's a massive number next to his name, but I just really don't think he's going to win here, to be honest. I mean, we have Makhachev, who's a guy who barely gets hit, less than once per minute on average. And then we have Bobby Green, who's a guy that puts out tremendous volume. On average, if you're fighting Bobby Green, you're getting hit almost 6 times per minute. So what fight are we going to see? We know Makhachev wants to grapple. Green wants to strike. Green is a great boxer. Maybe could have some real success standing. A bit of an underrated wrestler as well. Let's give him that credit. Maybe not underrated so much as he just hasn't dusted it off in a while, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to stop Makhachev. I think he's going to be too relentless. I think Bobby Green probably starts out strong. I think he comes out fearless and tries to fight his fight. But I think he gets taken down. And I think after he gets taken down and held down for the first time, he's going to start being a little more conservative, not taking as many risks, being very conscious of the distance, and just kind of subconsciously starts to fight Islam's fight. And I also don't think it helps for Bobby to be coming in here so shortly after going a hard 3 rounds. Makhachev is just not a guy I think many guys can beat on short notice after having fought 2 weeks prior. And out of the people that I think maybe could do it, I don't include Bobby Green amongst their ranks, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to favor Makhachev here inside the distance, submission possibly. And I don't know what the line on fight doesn't go. I feel like it's probably not that good anymore, but I don't think this one goes the distance here.
I definitely understand that point of view. And man, I think that, like I mentioned, Bobby, he definitely has a tough road to hoe here. Like you had mentioned, the fight doesn't go the distance. I'm looking at that line right now. It's currently sitting at a -286, best number available on the market at Bet Rivers. More often it's -350, -325, that kind of number you're looking at for the fight doesn't go. Julian, how do you feel about this matchup? And do you have any interest? I think you said you have a max bet waiting to drop here. So I guess I know which side it's on, but drop the hammer for us.
Yeah, I've got a max bet on this fight. I think I've got the best bet of the whole card. Over 1.5 rounds at -120, which is like stupid. I don't know who the fuck is lining this, yeah, but you're giving me -120 for over 1.5 rounds. I think this fight goes to decision or a late submission by Islam, but you're giving me -120 and over 1.5 rounds. I mean, I just laid the hammer, 10 units, my max bet, and yeah, I think this easily goes over 1.5 rounds unless someone just, I don't know, Makhachev just chokes him out first round, yeah, which I hope he does it. I don't think he does because I do rate Bobby Green highly, and I do think he does last longer than 7.5 minutes. But yeah, just over 1.5 rounds. That's all I care about. I've also got a unit on Islam by decision at plus 300, which I think is kind of high, but I don't know. As long as this fight goes over 1.5 rounds, I'm fine. But I can't see any way Bobby Green wins this fight. Even even on the feet, Islam Makhachev is quite underrated. I think his striking is not too bad. But yeah, I think Islam does whatever the fuck he wants here. Hopefully, gets a decision. As long as it goes over 1.5 rounds, I'm fine. And yeah, that's that's pretty much it. Also, I want to give. I just saw a line on Bet365. For everyone that has Bet365, the line is crazy. I can't back it because I've got 11 units riding on this fight, so I'm done betting on this fight. Yeah, but for the people watching, I'm gonna give you a free tip right here. If you got Bet365, run to it right now. They released, I think, the first time I saw it was right now. Yeah, they've got Islam by submission or decision at minus 165, which I think is quite insane. But yeah, that's all I've got.
Maybe they're shading it towards that knockout as well, thinking Islam's underrated striking could come into play. But I appreciate that shout. Everybody with Bet365, you can take advantage of that if you're looking towards that Islam side. I know a lot of people are playing the Islam subline at, plus 100. Why not give yourself that extra win equity? Maybe bite a little bit of that chalk, but cover a lot more outcomes and bet on the durability and the potential toughness of Bobby Green here,
Yeah.
and the short notice nature of the fight affecting Islam's performance as well, because he was expecting, jiu-jitsu savant Benny Dariush, and now instead he has to deal with, old school American wrestler and tough cage fighter Bobby Green. So it's just a different dynamic, a different style matchup. So I could definitely see this fight making it to the later rounds. I could see it going to decision, but I think it's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be competitive. I do think that, unfortunately for Bobby Green, he's probably dealing with one of the best fighters on the planet, and that's going to be an uphill battle for anybody. So want to shout out the great people in our chat as well before we get out of here. Liam, the GOAT, love from Brazil, appreciate you. Your best bet sports data guest on the show, friend of the show, says Liam, appreciate you in the chat. My man Tajik Bey, Nick Alexander, I see you guys as well. Eric, bets fights, oh shit, what's up, fellas? Merrick just subscribed. I hope you guys all choose to do the same. So appreciate my guests big time. We're about to close out the show. I just want to give them an opportunity to let you guys know where you can find their work moving forward, and say a big thank you guys once again for coming on the show and making it what it is today. So Lucky Locks, my man, where can the people find you?
Find me on Twitter at LuckyLocksPicks, right below my picture right there. Find me on YouTube at the exact same thing, doing a bunch of regional stuff for the most part in terms of breakdowns. And obviously we got to talk about UFC sometimes too. So just a pleasure to be on the show with Liam today. One of the most positive guys in the space, always there with good energy and a big smile. So happy to be on, and it was a great show. I really enjoyed it.
Appreciate it, buddy. It was the pleasure all mine. You are a encyclopedia for knowledge on the regional scene. Appreciate that angle that you brought to the show as well today. You are a wealth of knowledge on those LFA fights, so thank you so much. And Julian, where can the people find you, brother?
Yeah, just JMN betting. I mainly bet football, and I've got a VIP group. So if you guys want to kind of expand what you bet on and want to join the football betting team, you could just DM me on Twitter. We can get you joined up. Over 400 units profit in the last 2 years, quite insane. But yeah, I just appreciate if you can follow me. I appreciate you, Liam, for having me on here, and bet the house on Tsarukyan this Saturday.
I love it. I love it. So now you got the Julian betting endorsement as well on top of Liam picks fights. Yes.
Also, Liam, I appreciate you. I don't know if Locks got paid, but I got paid 5 Ethereum by Liam to make this appearance. So I appreciate that as well.
Oh, anytime, my brother. And don't worry, Locke, your check is in the mail, my man. It is in the mail. But boys, appreciate you guys tremendously. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Last thing I want to mention on the way out here, I'm about to do Andrew and Magic's MMA betting podcast in about 5 minutes here. So I hope you guys will check that out as well. If you never have, should be a fun conversation. And so I'm looking forward to that as well. If you haven't gotten enough of the fight talk yet, come on down. We're going to do some more of it, and I'm going to bring the smile there as well. So appreciate you guys as always. This has been another great episode of Liam Picks Fights. I hope you guys, if you choose to gamble, do so legally, responsibly, within your means. If you have any questions about me or the show, go ahead and read. It's all in the description box below. Find me everywhere at Liam Picks Fights. I appreciate your support. God bless you all. Enjoy those fights. And until next time, this has been Liam Picks Fights. We'll see you then. Take care, everybody. Come back next week. We'll have all the same fun.